Never meet your heroes. Just become them instead. This is Close Up.
Hey, Jackie.
Hey, Greg.
Welcome to Seen and Heard. It's the podcast all about the sight and sound greatest films of all time list. We're back on the, well, we were on the list last week too, but we're ping-ponging back and forth. If you don't know, we do this thing called ping pong.
Right.
Where we pull one from the top of the list and then we pull one from the bottom. And since we're almost done with the 2012 critics list, we're about in the middle.
Yeah.
But yes, it is Abbas Kiarostami's Close Up this week.
Yeah, so this was for number 42 on the 2012 list. So yeah, kind of in the middle, right? That's where we are. But it's number 17 on the 22 list.
Interesting.
Big jump.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the film this week, Jackie, what else have you been watching?
A lot. Like a lot of 2024 movies.
I see you've been logging a lot on Letterboxd.
Yeah, I've just been trying to catch up because it's, awards season and everything. So but I took a break from that to watch this Noah Baumbach film While We're Young, which I'd never seen, with Adam Driver and Ben Stiller, Naomi Watts, Amanda Seyfried's in it too. It's fun. I really liked it, but I'm watching it and there's this person in it. And I'm like, where have I seen this guy? And it's Brady Corbett, who is the director of The Brutalist.
That's right. Yeah, he was an actor.
He was an actor. Right? So I was like, I couldn't escape, even when I tried to. But then I saw Nickel Boys, A Real Pain, and Amelia Perez all in 1 week.
Wow.
Yeah. Nickel Boys was really beautiful.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It's really beautiful. It's told completely in the first person point of view perspective of like two characters, so it alternates between them, but really truly, like, it's so well done. Like, it never feels gimmicky. It really never feels gimmicky, and it's very it achieves in just making you feel everything they're feeling. It's really wonderful. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been watching. I also rewatched one of my favorite movies of all time, which is the Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, the Brandy Cinderella with Whitney Houston and Brandy.
I don't think I've seen that all the way through.
It is the best made-for-TV movie ever,
wow.
I think.
There's some great made-for-TV movies.
I haven't seen that many, but this is truly, like, it's such a good musical. Like, it is so good. There were several, like, I don't know. It's a special kind of movie musical that I really love.
I'll have to see it.
Yeah, you should see it. And Bernadette Peters is in it. Jason Alexander's in it. Whoopi's in it. It's really fun. Anyway, that's what I've been watching.
Nice. I noticed you tactically left off Amelia Perez there.
I did see Amelia Perez. No, I said
like
A Real Pain.
You mentioned it, but then you didn't
Well,
elaborate.
It's funny because Amelia Perez is also a musical.
If that's what passes for a musical these days, yeah.
And then I watched Brandy before the Brandy Cinderella, and then I watched Amelia Perez. And obviously the Brandy Cinderella takes the cake, even though it's a made for TV. It just goes to show, like, made for TV, shot on a backlot. Everything is like super artificial and fun and corny and 90s-y. And it's like such a better movie. Like, it's crazy. But yeah.
Did you finish Amelia Perez?
I did.
Oh.
I never stop a movie halfway.
Oh,
and I'm going to say what I told you. I thought the first 20 minutes were fun.
Absolutely not.
I thought they were really fun.
No.
I thought they were fun and I was intrigued.
It's the worst. I mean, I hate to just jump on the bandwagon because everyone hates this movie. Like, I know maybe 2 people who rated it highly on Letterboxd, but everyone else hates it. It strangely won like the special jury prize or something at Cannes or whatever, which is an embarrassment. This movie was, I mean, I'm trying to refrain myself from being too mean. It was one of the worst movies I've seen in a long time. Just absolute not good. Again. Terrible movie. Terrible. And
Oh,
I turned it off halfway through because I just couldn't. I try to go in with an open mind. I like an underdog. I like to go in and like a movie that everyone else hates. That's like, oh no, there's some merit here. People just aren't on this wavelength. It's terrible. Actually, I don't think I've seen any movies by him. I meant to see The Sisters Brothers when that came out, but I never saw it. But this was just, I mean, if anything deters you from seeing the rest of someone's filmography, it's Amelia Perez. Jesus Christ. And then I saw Room with a View on the big screen.
Aww.
I was playing at Vidiot's, and so Molly and I went and saw it. And it's such a great movie. And it's
so good.
It's such a funny movie, but when you see it with an audience, oh my God, like people are just dying. It's
Were they
so
really?
funny. Yeah, it's so funny. So yeah, that's kind of me.
That's it?
I saw a movie called Misunderstood, an Italian movie from 1966 about this sort of upper class family in Florence.
Understood?
Misunderstood.
As in miss? Understood or misunderstood?
Misunderstood. One word. Okay. Or Incompresso is the Italian title.
Sure.
It was good.
Cool.
Yeah, it was good. But yeah, that's me.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get into this week's film from 1990. This is Abbas Kiarostami's Close Up.
Close Up was released in 1990. It was written and directed by Abbas Kiarostami, cinematography by Ali Reza Zarindast. No score, but the song heard during the climactic motorcycle ride is actually from another Kiarostami film. It's from The Traveler, which is referenced in the film itself. The film blends documentary and scripted reenactment to tell the true story of Hossein Sabzian, a cinephile who impersonates the Iranian filmmaker Mohsen Makhmalbaf and infiltrates a middle-class family, the Ahankhas. He meets Mrs. Ahankha on a bus while reading Makhmalbaf's script for The Cyclist from 1987. When Mrs. Ahankha expresses interest in the film and tells him her sons love cinema, Sabzian tells her he himself is Makhmalbaf. He goes to meet the family and tells them he wishes to shoot his next film in their home. He even promises to cast them in the film and starts rehearsing with one of the sons. They suspect that he is a fraud when he has no idea that a Makhmalbaf film has won an award at a film festival abroad. The family enlists the help of a journalist, Farozman, who arrives with the police to confirm and arrest Sabzian. Kiarostami speaks to Sabzian in prison and gains permission to film the trial. Eventually, the judge convinces the Ahankhas to pardon Sabzian. When Sabzian is released from prison, Kiarostami arranges for the real Makhmalbaf to pick him up on his motorcycle and take him to visit the Ahankhas together. They stop for flowers on the way and are both warmly greeted by Mr. Ahankha. The film's cast, if you want to call it that, is made up of the actual people involved in the incident playing themselves. Farazman's original article, Bogus Makhmalbaf Arrested, came out in the autumn of 1989 in Soroush magazine. In his Criterion essay for the film, Godfrey Cheshire writes about the two different stories he heard about how the movie came to be. He spoke to both Kiarostami and Makhmalbaf, and they had differing accounts. So this is interesting because, it's kind of important to know about not Kiarostami in the making of this movie, but more Makhmalbaf. Mm-hmm. Because it's Godfrey Cheshire said, basically, and he explains in the article that Makhmalbaf was part of a militant group and he was imprisoned for stabbing a police officer. This is before the revolution. And eventually, when the revolution happened, he was freed. He was in prison for 5 years, but he was freed when the revolution happened. And in the first years of the revolution, he was very, very much pro-Islamic State and the government, and he used to bash other filmmakers who didn't push the revolution's ideologies. However, as the years went by, he became disillusioned with the government, and he started to apologize to all the filmmakers that he had slandered, including Kiarostami. So on this visit to go make amends to Kiarostami, he had the magazine with him. And so, well, this is Makhmalbaf's side. He says that he had the magazine with him and he told Kiarostami about his idea to make a movie. And Kiarostami said, well, you can't direct it because you're a character in it. So I'll direct it. Kiarostami's side of the story is that when he came to visit him, he already had the magazine there and started talking about his idea for a movie because he was nervous, like in front of Makhmalbaf. So he started talking about this idea he had. And then together, both of them went to the family's house, and apparently they stayed up all night talking and drinking tea. And by the end of the night, Kiarostami had convinced like everyone present to make this film like together in this way that he wanted to make it. So that's kind of the story of how this came to be. The trial and Sabzian meeting with Makhmalbaf was shot first because those actually like happened, and you know, like he was already in prison when they decided to make the movie. So like that stuff happened first, and then they shot the reenactments.
Wait, so the trial was the actual trial?
So yes, the trial was the actual trial, but I have more information on that. When the film was released, it was not that popular in Iran, but it was abroad. And it really brought Kiarostami to the international scene. According to Cheshire, to answer your question, none of the scenes are truly documentary because everything was like partly scripted or contrived. For example, like Sabzian's speech, all the speeches at the trial, Kiarostami like scripted them, but he talked to him before, and apparently they were all based on things that he had already said to him. The trial was the real trial, but in reality, the Ahankhas were upset that Sabzian was not convicted. And even Sabzian like went up to the judge and said, like, what did Kiarostami say to you? Like, why am I free? And so it's kind of like, apparently Kiarostami coaxed the judge to kind of like make that happen.
Interesting.
So it is interesting because it's like, and we'll talk about this more, like how much of it being pure nonfiction like is important, but
right.
I don't know. We'll talk about that. The only other specs I have are that Sabzian died of a heart attack in 2006. He was only 52. And this film is really seen as a film that like redefined Iranian cinema. Like in 1983, there was a government-sponsored revival of cinema, and the films that emerged from there were often like child-centered, like Where's the Friend's House, the Kiarostami film, and a bunch of others at the time. But Close Up was more complex, and it was about adults, and so this film was like really, really important for Iranian cinema. Yeah,
and still very revered to this day. And like you said, like grows in stature, if anything.
Yeah. But interesting stuff. I want to know the details about like how much of it, like I want to know like word for word from Kiarostami's mouth, like what was scripted, what was not, because apparently even the motorcycle scene was planned, like was, I don't know if it was like rehearsed or what that even means. Like apparently the mics, they're not like, they weren't breaking out. That was like put in during editing. Like I don't know if Sabzian knew that Makhmalbaf was gonna pick him up. Like was that just, what did they just tell him, like, oh, by the way, this is happening, and then his reaction is genuine? Like right. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems genuine. Otherwise he's a pretty great actor.
So genuine.
Yeah.
Basically, the way it made it seem from this article was that Kiarostami did not need to hide like in a car and use a long lens. Like it seemed like everyone knew what was going to be happening. But yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
It is. And then I don't know if going to the Ahankha's house after was also like they knew that they were coming. So I don't know. But it works really well.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first? Why don't you go first?
So this was the first Kiarostami movie I saw, and I saw it probably about 10 years ago.
As most of these movies, as you have most of these movies.
So this was a good start, I think, because it's a nice 90-minute movie. I don't know that a lot of his films were very long. It's a nice 90-minute movie. It's very succinct, and I think it kind of like colors in everything that Kiarostami was about and what he was interested in. And the biggest thing is like this truth versus reality. And he's so obsessed with breaking the illusion of cinema in so many of his films. And I liked it immediately. And I went on to, Where's the Friend's House? And what's the one made after Where's the Friend's
Something
House?
of Life Goes On.
Yeah, I think so.
So that was made after Close Up. So he made Where's the Friend's House, and then he made Close Up, and then he went and finished that like kind of you said the other day the Coker trilogy.
Yeah, the Coker trilogy.
So it's
Life Goes On,
Life
and then
Goes
Through the
On,
Olive
which
Trees
is about
or something.
Yeah, they go back to the village where Where's the Friend's House was made, and they make a movie about the people living there and also the actors and then there was another.
Yeah, there was another that even comes further out
about that movie.
Yeah, and so it's like this Russian nesting dolls or something.
Yes.
That's how I always think about his movies, and I actually have not seen Certified Copy, which I know a lot of people love.
That's the one with
Juliette Binoche. Yeah. And I did see his final film, 24 Frames, which none of this really indicates. It's literally just 24 still images that he like lightly animates and
cool.
holds on each of them for like a few minutes.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful, meditative, transportive movie.
There's also that other movie. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but what's the one movie where it's just women watching a movie?
Oh, I don't know that one.
You don't know about it?
No.
Here, let me find it. Yes, it's called Shirin, and it's women, like famous Iranian, and also Juliette Binoche is one of them. Women actresses watching a movie, but you never see the movie. You're just watching them watch a movie.
Oh, cool! I like that.
Yeah, I really want to see it.
Oh, and then there's Taste of Cherry, of course.
Yes,
which is probably, if I was forced to pick a favorite, maybe, but this is up there. Anyway, long-winded point of just saying that I think this movie is incredible. It's like what you said. Like you can kind of tell that the courtroom stuff is real because of the way that it's shot, and like it's shot from like a TV screen.
So what he did was interesting. It's that was shot in 16. The rest of the movie is shot in 35.
Oh, okay.
Like he did it on purpose, is what I'm saying.
Right,
though, to make it seem like it's like, oh, it's like official business, right? It's
right. And I think some people might feel, we did Taste of Cherry. It was very early on for the Euro Film Club, and it was a very mixed reaction from people because he does something similar in Taste of Cherry where he kind of pulls the wool off, like, oh, we're making a movie. And it's like, I know some people hate that. Anything I watch now, any like documentary or piece of reality TV, I don't watch a lot of reality TV. It's mostly like people moving to the British countryside or something. But I think about every shot of like, oh, this isn't totally natural. Like they staged this part must be scripted. Mm-hmm. It's like there's so few documentaries, quote unquote documentaries, that are 100% natural and truthful and like naturally happened. Like by the process of making a film, you're imposing lighting and writing and cinematography and all this stuff onto a real situation. Right. And so I think the thing about Kiarostami is he just plays with that because nothing is 100% truthful.
Right.
That's crazy to even know that the audio cutting out was his idea.
They did that in post.
But, that just makes me like it more, honestly.
Yeah.
Because everything he does, and I think, too, Sabzian's, like, big courtroom scene, his big speech, it is kind of concise in a way that, like, an everyday person might not be able to kind of, like, articulate in that way.
But it also feels rambly to me.
It feels rambly, but it feels like the fact that it's all contained in this 90-minute movie, I can imagine that Kiarostami just kind of heard the main talking points and then kind of tightened it up and condensed it a little bit, made it a little more cinematic. Because like the camera knows exactly, it does this slow zoom into him as he's talking. And by the time you get a real close-up on him is the climax of what he's talking about. Yeah. So it's like, it is perfectly orchestrated in a way that they could not have known if they were just shooting this on the fly.
Yeah.
But, it's a great movie. And I think, too, it starts in such an inconspicuous way of like this reporter getting picked up and these two guardsmen by this cab driver. But immediately you get the download, the setup.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, like what? Because I remember when I first heard about this movie, I'm like, yeah, it's just about a guy that impersonates this other filmmaker. And I'm like, what? That doesn't sound interesting.
Yeah.
But then you see the movie and it's set up in those first 5 or 10 minutes. And you're like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know Mahmoud Baf. I haven't seen any of his films. And certainly before this, I had not heard of him.
Right.
But yeah, you get the sense of what a cultural icon he was and how important he was. And I just think that this movie, even amongst Kiarostami's filmography, where he's always kind of playing with what's real and what's not, stands out as a really succinct, just like clear work. And also like as a film fan, how can you not be moved by this story? It's like someone whose entire life, like when he tells him, Sabzian tells Kiarostami, he's like, tell Makbulbaf that the cyclist is a part of me.
Yeah.
I'm like, who can't relate to that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's a great, great movie that deserves all the attention and all the praise.
I agree.
How about you?
I totally agree. And I haven't seen that many Kiarostami films. I've only seen this and Where's the Friend's House, which I should immediately amend that. But people always talk about like redefining the medium and creating a whole new like film language. And I think that it's a little overused, the amount of like the way that people say it. But I think that this is something completely unique.
Yeah.
Even though it's not that crazy when you say, oh, they're reenactments and then it's like documentary footage, but it's exactly what you were saying. Like, it's because it is contrived. Like, that's what makes it unique. But beyond all the layers and like the peeling away of the different mediums within the medium and the truth and fiction of it all, it's such a simple story about just like a love of movies and how we idolize artists and art and escapism, like escaping into it. Then but that's simplifying it because it's also about class. So it's like it's a movie with so much on its mind, but it's such a simple story, like such an easy to understand story. It's just beautifully human, and the way in which it's made brings us close to the people, like in a way that's closer than regular documentary, I feel like.
Yeah. Hence the title.
And I can't really explain why, but I think it's the artistic element of reenacting the scenes themselves, like in an artistic way, like staying in the cab while the action inside is going on. It adds something to it. It brings it like, I don't know, it brings it closer to us. It brings us closer to them than a traditional documentary. And I can't really explain why, but I think in Nicole Kidman's terms, that's magic. It's truly magic, because a normal documentary should be, okay, here's the truth, and that's as close as you can come to the truth as possible. But because there's an artistic element in this, and because it's like, because the story itself is cinephile coded, and an actual filmmaker has taken the story and made an artistic film out of it,
yeah,
I think is what makes it so special.
Yeah.
It's all to do with the fact that he's a film lover, because like, and he gets to be in his own movie. I think that's what makes it so special.
Yeah.
Like, they mean so much to him already. Like you said, the cyclist, he says, is part of him. And, you know, he looks up to these directors and identifies with them, and they've made films that speak to him. It's all about, he says it so many times, like, that they depict his suffering and he feels less alone. And so then there's this film, like, what can be more part of him than this film now, after this film was made? So I think that, yeah, for that reason, it's very just special for a cinephile.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it speaks extra special to film people for sure. I think too, just that it is this close-up, right? Like, the title is correct. Like, it is this deep dive into Sabzian. Mm-hmm. You're right. It has so much more on its mind, the class struggle and everything, because that's all tied into it. But it's like someone who just so desperately, like, it's not even like he's going around like, I'm Makbulbaf. It's like, it happens by accident, and he just kind of runs with it, and he takes it one piece at a time. But when you first meet him, you're like, who is this creep that's been like at this family's house? And over the course of the film, like, you really sympathize for this guy and also relate. I mean, this is embarrassing. But there was a time, you know, people today might not know, but there was a time when Pixar was this like golden standard. Like, every Pixar movie was great. And I used to live near Pixar, and I knew some friends that worked at Pixar. So we would go sometimes, and we would get the stuff that you could only buy at Pixar shirts or whatever. And I'd be out and around, and sometimes people would be like, do you work at Pixar? And I'd be like, yeah. You know, it's like all part of that. Like, I never did. But it's like, you want to be seen that way.
Of course.
Of like, you don't mean anything malicious by it, but it's just flattering to be like seen in that light. So it's like, you completely understand this guy.
Absolutely. And he even goes into like, you know, like I asked them to do something and they did it, and they wouldn't do it if I was just myself. So like you're absolutely right.
I think too, in the fact that he plays the long game, because the whole thing happens over a series of weeks or months that he's ingratiating himself in this family. And you can see how just one piece at a time until he's literally having fake rehearsals and like
he really believes it, but he's like, and it made me think of manifestation.
Yeah,
it totally did, because you know, in manifestation they always say like you need to live the life that you think you will achieve one day. Like that's the life that you need to live right now in order to achieve it. That's like how manifestation works in a very, very small nutshell.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what he's doing. He's kind of manifesting.
Yeah.
But then it actually comes true, right? Because now we have this film called Close Up, in which he is in and he's a part of, and it can never be taken from him. And it's like Kiarostami, this filmmaker he looks up to, made this movie about him.
Yeah.
And it was all because he did manifest. So maybe there's something to that.
And he got to meet his idol,
got to meet his idol. And yeah. It's really an incredible, it's kind of hard to talk about this movie, and I don't know why. I think it's because it does have so much on its mind, but also like there's so many
layers.
Exactly.
But it's like what you said, it's also very simple.
Exactly.
It's that beautiful combination of like, it's a very simple story, but there's so much going on.
Yeah. And the filmmaking itself as well is like just as important. So I don't know. But let's talk about the scenes that are reenacted, that are like crafted. Like these are movie scenes.
Yeah, they're shot well, lit well.
Yes. The beginning, that opening taxi ride, I love that entire section.
Yeah.
Like I love it so, so much. They're driving, they're lost. They see this guy on the street with 2 turkeys. He's like, want a turkey? And so that's exactly, I was watching that. I'm like, wait, was that staged? That couldn't have been staged, but it probably was. And then we stay with the cab while he goes inside and does like the important, what he came here to do, what we've been waiting for, right? In the first 15 minutes of the movie, and we don't even get to see it.
Yeah.
But we're with this cab driver and he picks roses and there's an aerosol can on the floor and he kicks it and we watch it.
Can. What do you think about that?
I love it. I love the aerosol.
What do you think he's doing there?
Nothing. I think he's just living. That's something I would do. Would you kick a can?
Yeah, I've kicked many a can.
And watch it go?
I even thought about the logistics in that scene to get that can to perfect, because it's so cylindrical. They're so easy once they get rolling to stop if they turn a little bit, but to like get it to roll all the way down this hill, and the camera just patiently follows it.
You're watching, and I'm like, whoa! Like I was glued to the screen, and that just watching a can roll down a hill.
And meanwhile, you know what's happening in the house as they're getting him, detaining him.
Yeah.
And then you get to see it later. But no, it's a beautiful thing that you're just with the cab driver for that part. I think that's
love it.
So the correct choice.
Yes. And even like the camera stays in the cab. We see the journalist, Farazman, go and come back and say like, I forget what he asks. He goes, remember he leaves and then he comes back to the car and then we watch him go back again and go in the house.
Yes.
It's so good.
Yeah, because he comes to get the guards, right?
Yes, maybe.
Because he goes in
about ID papers.
He goes in first because he knows what Makbabaf looks like.
So he wants to like,
and
confirm.
He wants to ID him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, can I talk to you outside?
It's so good. And then we get the rest of it. So Kiarostami has said that he makes like half-made films because like they have to be completed by the audience. And so like to leave out that whole scene, right? But then we actually get it in the end. So it's like, it reminded me of like transcendentalism that we've talked about, where it's like, it's holding back. We're watching a tin can. And then finally at the end, when we actually are in the room for that scene, it's so gratifying.
Yeah. It's
so amazing, the effect that had. But I love that scene too, when he comes in, when we actually see the arrest.
Yeah.
I can't think I can't tell which is my favorite like reenactment scene. I think it might be the beginning. It's the beginning, or it's the scene where they come get him. Yeah, in the cab.
I mean, every scene with Sapsian, he's so good and natural, and like never once do you feel like, because other documentaries have done that. I want to say some of Errol Morris's documentaries do that. I think even like Thin Blue Line because his whole thing was like cinematic recreations. And I think he usually used the people involved. I could be totally wrong.
Okay.
But I know some other people do that, like use the actual people. But there's something about, usually you can tell. And I think with this, like, everyone is just so natural.
Yeah, even when the journalist is asking for, he doesn't have a tape recorder. So he's going around to all the neighbors. And one of the sons is like, what are you doing? Like, we don't even know them. And he's like ringing on the door.
Yeah.
He's like, they're gone. They're not here. And then to one of them on the intercom, he goes like, sorry, wrong address. But he's so good in that scene, but he's just the son, right? Like, he's just the real guy.
Yeah.
And even the journalist in that scene is so good. Like, I would think he was an actor. Like,
Yeah.
he's doing an incredible job.
Yeah, he really is. And I wonder, it's a lot of heavy lifting on Kiarostami's part that we'll never see, of just like getting these people to this place and making them feel comfortable enough to just be natural and be themselves. So I think a lot of people, non-actors, like they try to overcompensate or whatever. So I can only imagine the first take or the first rehearsal where Kiarostami has to like bring them down.
Yeah. The bus scene with Mrs. Ahonka, she's so good.
Yeah.
Like, she just seems like a normal mom. Like,
yeah.
It's incredible.
I love the scenes of Sabzian talking to the patriarch and matriarch of the family in their house, where they're like, he starts getting pushy too, like he wants eggs. They're like, well, we don't really eat breakfast or whatever. They're like, but we can make you something.
Yeah.
So it's
that
like,
is really funny.
Starting to take advantage of the power that comes along.
He was kind
with,
of, yeah, he was a little bit.
Yeah.
And he talked about it in the trial, and he said, like,
not in a malicious way.
No, not at all.
But becoming a little bit of a diva.
Yeah. He did become a little bit of a diva.
I think too, it's interesting that this house is in a cul-de-sac.
And I love that the journalist in the car says, I can't believe like my best story is coming from a dead end.
Yeah, exactly.
So funny.
The journalist also says something else on that car ride over, where he said it's pointless if it's not taped. And I think that's sums up the whole movie.
A little bit.
But of course, every filmmaker and every journalist is going to feel like, yeah, everything needs to be captured, and all needs to be, if it's not captured, it's like that thing, if a tree falls in the woods, but no one's around to see it, you make a noise or whatever. It's the same thing. It's like, you want to see this stuff. As human beings, we need to see it happen. We have this desire for that.
Right.
And yeah, it's just, God, it's good.
It is really good. Did you notice in the courtroom scene when we learned that the woman, before the courtroom scene, there's like a flash of a woman. And then when the courtroom scene happens, we realize it's his mom. But I can't put my finger on when that flash happened in the first place. Do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about? There's like a flash of an older woman. I don't remember when. And then in the courtroom, we see it's the mom. We see the exact shot. And I was like, damn, like, where did I see that before? I know I saw that.
Huh. Because the movie doesn't really do stuff like that.
No, but
it doesn't have this like elliptical editing or anything.
But I swear I saw it.
Huh. No, I mean, I believe you.
It's weird. But yeah, I mean, like the mom. Okay, so like the mom interrupting in the courtroom, right, and saying like, "Please let him go." Was that scripted?
Who knows? But that's kind of the beauty of the movie, is like, it's this gray area of like,
yeah,
some of it is, some of it isn't.
Yeah,
but it all exists in this film that's presented to us as this sort of document.
Yes.
So it's like, it almost doesn't matter what's real and what's not.
Yeah, I agree. Exactly. Like the mic thing, right? It doesn't really bother me that he himself like did that in editing.
No. Because what documentarian, I mean, again, to go back to Errol Morris, just because he's one of the most famous documentarians, his stuff is so ridiculously cinematic.
Yeah.
And it's like Philip Glass music, and it's like slow motion in these recreations. It's like, there's so many documentarians, not that Kiarostami necessarily is a documentarian, because I don't really think he is, but you can't help but make a beautiful piece of cinema out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if you watch some of the Herzog documentaries or whatever, there's this need to make this stuff really cinematic.
Yeah.
And so what better than like the sound cutting out in the, climactic, in quotes, scene.
Yeah.
It just adds that little extra something.
Exactly. I agree.
So yeah, I think I would do the same thing. I think a very, very straightforward documentary, unless the subject matter is like really riveting, can be kind of boring.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think they were talking about on the motorcycle ride?
You know, I never thought about it, and I don't even care to, because there's something so beautiful about just them connecting and having this moment, and you can't really hear what they're saying.
I know, and he's crying. He cries twice at the end.
Yeah.
He cries when he first sees him, and then when they actually go to the Ahancha's house.
Yeah, he gives him the flowers.
But when he rings the bell, and he's like, it's Sabzian, and then he's like, he pauses for a second, and he goes, Mahmelbaf. And then he starts crying.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And even the real Mahmelbaf is like, it's okay, no more tears. Like,
yeah,
it's so good.
I wonder if that was scripted again, but it goes
him crying.
Yeah.
Him crying is amazing. He's an amazing crier.
Yeah,
beautiful.
It's really beautiful.
Should we do sight and sound?
Yeah, let's do sight and sound. I have a combined one. So what's your sight?
Well, my sight was hard because I almost wanted to go with when the journalist is going door to door, because it's all one shot and he's like asking for a tape recorder, and I just love it. Like, it's perfect. But I think I have to go with another long shot, which is when they come to arrest him, right? Because it's all one, and then he's like just sitting in the corner of the room.
The window. He's looking out the window.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of mine.
And he knows. He's like, I'm about to be found out.
But also that part was scripted.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's because he seems in that scene, it's crazy that that's a reenactment, because he's just so comfortable. Like, he's so like, I want eggs and I'm doing this and we have to rehearse. And
I think the thing about this movie that I'm having such a hard time putting my finger exactly on and articulating is the fact that by making this movie and by making it the way that he has, it creates this whole new reality of like whatever the initial reality was of him getting caught and taken away and detained and stuff. The one presented in the movie that's like scripted becomes the new reality.
Exactly.
So it's like, this is the document of this story. And some of it has been, slightly nudged this way or that way to make it more cinematic.
Yeah. Who knows what it was actually like?
Yeah.
Like,
it's almost beside the point what it was really like.
Yeah.
When everyone associated with the movie is dead, this movie will solely be the remaining, like, this is what happened.
Right. Of course. What is your favorite sight?
So my favorite sight and sound is when he meets Makhmalbaf for the first time.
Yeah.
Because who can't relate to that? Meeting your hero and under this such strange circumstances of how he kind of willed this into existence.
Manifested it.
Yeah, I mean, he manifested and he feels shame, but he's also like beside himself that he's actually meeting him. And he starts crying, and the way that Makhmalbaf is like, oh no, it's okay. And like, oh my God.
It is. It's amazing.
I'll play the clip right now.
آقای سبزیان هستی؟ خب شما خوبه چرا گریه نکن ببینن نکن این کارو کی اومدی بیرون؟ کی اومدی بیرون؟ ببینم من ببینمت
خدا سپاس گذاری کنم
کی اومدی بیرون؟ کی اومدی بیرون؟ ببینمت من ببینمت
It's just beautiful.
It really is.
Yeah. What's your favorite sound?
My favorite sound is actually a line, which was, it's during the courtroom, and he says, art is the experience of what you felt inside. It's such a simple sentence, such a simple thought, but so much truth. And here it is.
بازی نیست. من فکر کنم که هنر اون تجربه است که انسان در درون خودش حس کرده.
And then he goes on, he talks in that courtroom scene about like Tolstoy said the artist is the person that cultivates what's inside and brings it out. And it's like, what better example than this freaking movie? Like, it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. Also, we forgot to mention the fact that he talks in his speech in the courtroom about how he wants to be an actor, right? Because he said, like, why didn't you impersonate an actor then? And he says, like, I think I would make a good actor and I can use everything I have inside me. And so, yeah, maybe that should inform us on the scenes where he is crying. Like,
yeah.
Is it real? Is it not? Does it matter?
I know. I'm in the camp of it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't think it matters either.
Yeah.
Well,
This is normally where we would do Pauline
No!
Kael, but there's no Pauline Kael for this.
That's surprising.
Yeah. I mean, she retired a couple years after this. I don't know if this was like a wide release in the States necessarily when it came out. But yeah, I couldn't find Pauline Kael. In fact, I couldn't find a Pauline Kael for any Kiarostami.
Interesting.
So no Pauline Kael.
I wonder what she thought of him.
But we do have the lovely people at Letterboxd.
5 stars. All the best artists are gifted liars.
Oh, I saw that one. Yeah. I mean, true. Absolutely.
Yeah. Meaning Kiarostami included.
Yes, absolutely. Especially 4.5 stars. Cinema as an extension of reality. Watch this if you ever find yourself falling out of love with movies.
Aww.
It is that kind of rejuvenating thing for sure, I think. It's like you said, it's hard to find even a comparison to like what he's doing here.
Right. 2 stars. Really wholesome ending that made it all worth it. I really was not rooting for this guy until the very end.
Oh.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
To not root for him. That's
I know.
really interesting.
He didn't even do anything like like he's a little creepy at first and then
He
very
took the
quickly.
money for the cab.
Yeah, he took no, that's his biggest offense. 0.5 star. Someone said, I'm gonna say this once. Just because a movie has a good message and a good theme does not at all make it a good movie. I really did not care for this one. It did not connect with me at all. Other than maybe a few of the courtroom moments, nothing stood out to me at all. It was not memorable. It was super slow. And it was, of course, really boring. What a snooze fest. I'm sorry to be mean, but I just found no joy while watching this whatsoever.
Wow.
It really was a chore to sit through.
Wow.
I can't even really fathom that, to be honest.
That's crazy.
Like, are you human? For me, I mean, you don't have to love this movie because I think certainly it is divisive in the way that Kiarostami made it and the way that he makes films in general. But to like hate it and think it's boring, I don't know. It's not boring.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. 5 stars. Cinema as a means of escapism. To know that someone out there understands all your anguish and sorrow and is brave enough to turn it into an empathetic piece of art that you can indulge yourself in. A truly one of a kind film that everyone should experience at least once. I'm not going to say anything else except that I truly hope that Sabzian is doing okay right now. He seems like a really nice guy.
Well, he's passed away.
Unfortunately. But I agree because it's like that is exactly what Kiarostami did for Sabzian by making this movie. So like the whole movie itself is like almost a gift to this one person.
Yes, I think so.
Which is beautiful.
It makes him look great too, I think. Like he does.
Yeah.
0.5 star. Here is my hot take. Art doesn't have to be flat and boring. First of all, okay, maybe you were bored by this, but flat? Name one way in which this movie is flat.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to this damn thing. You literally don't know what you're talking about.
So similarly, 1 star. I don't see how people can watch this and be entertained. It's boring and it looks like shit. It
actually looks beautiful.
It looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like it makes a cul-de-sac look beautiful and a tin can rolling down.
Yeah.
Look amazing.
The way he uses light. I have the Criterion disc that's from 2010, which is the latest release, but that's 15 years ago now. Sometimes discs from 15 years ago don't always look amazing because it's like they weren't doing 2K or 4K restorations or whatever, but the movie still looks incredible, the Blu-ray. And immediately when it started, I was like, oh my God. Like it's stunning.
Gorgeous.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah, I agree.
I
totally
think to
agree.
say something like that is just an inherent misunderstanding of photography.
Maybe.
Where it's like, if it doesn't look like Roger Deakins, it's automatically bad cinematography.
5 stars, my last one. Being John Machmalbach.
Oh, I saw that, yeah. Oh, another great, very meta movie that does not claim to be factual at all, but
yes,
love Being John Malkovich.
Yeah, so do I. I love Charlie Kaufman, and I feel like I'm sure Kaufman loves this movie.
Oh, he has to.
Yeah.
He's like, no, actually, I don't really.
I don't really get it.
Well, yeah, this is close up a little shorter than our usual discussions, but I think what we were just talking about this off mic, but it's like with this kind of film, it doesn't even necessarily help to do a close-up, ironically, like to zoom in and take each scene apart, because it really is about this like stepping away from it big picture thing.
Yeah, I think it's important to know how it was made and like that it is a mix of documentary and reenactment, and then just like we'll let you do the rest.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. I know some people listen to these episodes without having seen the film, and if this in any way sounds like these Letterboxd reviewers are saying boring or flat, really implore you to watch this one. As if our praise this episode wasn't enough, like I would really implore you to watch this.
Yeah.
Because it is, I think, kind of a life-changing movie.
Yeah.
And certainly like 35 years later after it was made, like it still feels incredibly fresh and vital, and it's just a great portrait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we doing next week?
Next week is a seminal film. It is the film that Roger Ebert called the greatest film of the 80s. It is Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull.
Oh,
which just happens to be my favorite Scorsese.
Is it?
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know what my favorite Scorsese is.
It's a toss-up between this and Goodfellas, but if I was like pressed, I would probably say Raging Bull.
I might say Raging Bull too.
It's quite a feat because it's a sports movie, and I hate sports, so
find out next week.
Find out next week. I'm like, I love it. But yeah, return next week for Raging Bull. We'd love to have you. Until then, I'm Greg.
I'm Jackie.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Special thanks to the patrons at our highest tier, John Pennington and Cynthia Fordwell. Seen and Heard is an official podcast of the Arroyo Film Club. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to drop us a line, you can find us on email at hello@seenandheardpod.com or on Instagram @seenandheardpod.